Come to the time in the season when family and friends gather near to offer a prayer of thanksgiving for blessings.
Skol Vikings, let's win the game. Skol Vikings, honor your name. Go get a first down, then get a touchdown. Rock 'em, sock 'em, fight, 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 fight. I'm doing the whole damn thing. Skol Vikings, run up the score. You'll hear us yell for more. Cause it's V-I-K-I-N-G-S. Skol Vikings, let's go. Beat the pack, baby. Beat the pack. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Kindred Skulls. I'm back with fire. How's it going? I'm Gregg Blake. I'm joined with my lovely and talented co-hosts, Nick Olson, Matt Freeze. So good to be back with you guys this week. I'm rejuvenated. I'm energized. We downed the loathsome Packers this week. Nothing gets me more fired up. Nothing gets me more back on board than a win over the Green Bay Packers. Fuck those guys. They lost. We won. That's how it goes. Boo-hoo, Aaron. Cry tears. Cry about your toe. Cry about COVID. Cry about whatever the hell you want to cry about. You lost, buddy. We won. That's how it goes. The Vikings are back in the conversation. How do we feel, guys?
Not as good as you are, man.
Man,
oh my gosh.
I feel speechless right now. We went to that.
That's my Super Bowl. Listen, every year, no matter what happens with the Minnesota Vikings, no matter what state the team is in, and I feel all the things that we've talked about this year. I feel them maybe even more this week than I did before. I really do. But nothing makes me happier, no matter what the state of the team is, than a win over the Green Bay Packers, especially at home. It's oh so sweet. And this was a good one. This was a great game and ended with the best result possible. We had Paul Allen getting into it with coaches after the game. Everything. This game had everything. I loved it. You know, my younger self, I'd be frothy. I'd be absolutely frothy this week. I'm older and wiser now. You know, I have a long perspective on life and on the team and all these things. I don't get too high, too low. But that game, that win against that team, nothing gets me more fired up. We have lots to go over here.
Adam Thielen had a funny moment post-game where somebody asked him like what it's like to beat the Packers. And he's like, oh man, growing up, Packers week was like the biggest thing in school. And I remember every time we lost, when I had to go into school, how much I would hear from somebody. So I hope all the kids out there can wear their Vikings jerseys high headed into school tomorrow. So it's a big
Wear them
deal.
Wear them proudly. We got their number. We're actually, I think it's over the last, I saw some stat that over the last like 5 years, we've got their number. I think we have the advantage. All time, I think we're still pretty much even with them. They would never admit that. But
to be fair, over the past few years, there have been a few non-Rodgers games in there. So
I'm not going to be fair to them. Why would we be fair to them? Fuck them. We've trotted guys like Casey Keenum out on the field.
No, it's great.
Not having Aaron Rodgers.
Beat him last year with DJ Wanham.
That's true. We lose to Chase Daniel Bears.
Exactly. So. No, fuck those guys. I'm not going to give them any fairness whatsoever.
No, but
I hope every Packer fan that hears that too.
This was a huge win. I remember 4 weeks ago, we were looking at this murderer's row of games and things.
Absolutely.
Man, if we could only just come out of this 2-2 and we lose the first two and all of a sudden it's fire everybody. We win the Chargers game. Now we win the Packers game. We're back. So not only are we back at 500 in a playoff spot, we've got a divisional tie over the Packers for the division and for the playoff race if that comes into account. And we've got an early lead on the divisional race. So, or the playoff standing. So just a huge game in terms of everything, rivalry, playoff standing, the future of this team. We go from looking outside in to inside out playoff odds. And we saw a lot of really encouraging stuff from the game, from not just Zimmer's defensive philosophy, but like the offensive aggression, the pushing it past the sticks. The offensive design was so much better in this game. I think this is I'll go ahead and say this is probably Clint Kubiak's most impressive game as a play caller. It wasn't perfect, but in terms of the shift in strategy, it really feels like they understood what was wrong with the first half Vikings and they're fixing it. And that feels.
It turns out, Nick, no matter what the analysts say, no matter the consternation everybody I saw all the shit about you can't just throw the ball to Justin Jefferson. Hey, guess what? If you give Justin Jefferson the ball, good things happen, guys. It turns out that the most prodigious wide receiver talent we've had since Randy Moss, it turns out if you throw the ball to him, he makes things happen. I know it's crazy. I know in this day and age when everything's got to come down to a number, and we've got to figure out, all the statistics and hey, guess what? Justin Jefferson's really fucking good at football, and if you give him the ball, he will do amazing things. And that game, to me, that game was the moment for me as a fan that Justin Jefferson took over this team. This is no longer Dalvin Cook's team to me. This is Justin Jefferson's team. We go where Justin Jefferson takes us. Okay.
We got Gregg on Team Justin.
I've always been. Awesome. To be clear, I've always been on Team Justin. Always. I think that was the first game where I've really seen him be, utterly unstoppable. I feel like we could have thrown the ball to him 20 times, and he could have racked up 1,000 yards. It just felt like that. And the final touchdown was just the perfect example of a gotta have it, my ball versus your ball play.
Yep. It's like a cover one blitz. They're sending the house. There's more blitzers than the Vikings can pick up. There's pressure right up the middle. All Cousins can do is just drift back and throw up a prayer, and he chucks it. It's like 3rd and 3. So instead of going for the sticks, he chucks it into the end zone, and Jefferson just tracks it, catches it, and then just walks into the end zone. It was just a perfect
throwing the ball, Kirk.
We're going home.
It was reminiscent, guys, of that Adam Thielen touchdown a few years ago against the Packers. But honestly, it's an even better catch by Jefferson than Thielen made there. Thielen was falling back into the end zone and kind of split 2 guys. Justin had to go up and beat his guy to make that catch. So great, the Kirk throwing up the ball last couple games, especially this game, he got away with some of them, right, in terms of balls that should have been picked. But we've won. And we're not winning when we're being conservative, right? So you love to see it.
What have we got to lose? Throw him the ball, Kirk. Just throw him the ball.
Just take your shots, and that's what we've done the past couple of weeks.
Absolutely.
And honestly, an interception that you throw 50 yards downfield and is picked versus a 3-and-out and punting it 50 yards down the field, that's kind of a wash.
Yeah.
We got 3 dropped interceptions, and 2 dropped interceptions, 1 called back on penalty, and another one on that KG Osborne fade route that probably could have been, maybe it would have been a crazy play, but you might chart it as interceptable if you're being aggressive about it. But at the same time, that's fine. If Kirk continues to bring in the explosives and move the chains and push things downfield, that does so much for the entire offense. That opens up space underneath, that opens up space for Dalvin Cook, that opens up space underneath for a lot of different route concepts and allows you to build out a lot of different things rather than teams just capping every route, playing on top of things, playing at the sticks, and you go 3-and-out so many times. So it just does so many things for the offense. Dude, it really opens things up.
If you can cause the opponent to be genuinely afraid of Justin Jefferson, which they should fucking be, if you can cause that to happen, it doesn't matter.
You're just shredding the PG label. We are just far beyond.
Sorry, I'm on fire, man. I'm pumped up. I love a pack. I'll try to keep a lid on the cussing the rest of the year.
We're gonna mark this one explicit.
Sorry, boys. I'll try to tone it down. But I really am excited.
Sensitive ears.
Nick's Christian years. I apologize. I'll tone it down with the cussing. But I am very excited. I'm very excited about Justin. And I really think that. I really hope, and we'll get into this a little bit about the coming stretch of games and the playoff push and everything. But I really hope that the lesson that we learned from this game is that we got to get Justin the ball as much as possible. It really should be the lesson. And I'm Mr. Run It, you know that. But this kid is just he's 22 years old.
Special.
He's 22.
The past 2 weeks, he's just been obliterating everybody he goes up against. Is awesome.
You can't cover him. You can't one-on-one him. You can't if you bracket him, we'll be hitting you underneath. It opens everything. It opens everything up. Yep. And honestly, if you bracket him, I don't think you can cover him either. I think he's just he's just that special. 22 years old. Amazing game. let's talk about the defense a little bit. We gave up a lot of points, but my impression of the game, and I'm curious what you guys felt about the game. My impression of the game was that this was a game of making important stands. Moments in the game where making a stop is crucial. Nick, I see you shaking your head. Matt, I see you shaking your head. So
I guess I don't know if we really, because the last four drives for the Packers were touchdowns, right? Yeah. So we didn't really make the stands in the second half, but early on in the game, I agree that they did make some stands and they did stop them a little bit. Obviously, we lucked out on a Mason Crosby missed field goal early on in the game, but I think early on we were getting to them with blitzes a little bit, and like it was really kind of a down game, I would say, for the pass rush, and a down game for Xavier Woods in particular, right? And that was really the kind of weak points on the defense. I don't think that outside of that there was a whole lot of bad play just going through it. So the defense played well enough, and obviously with our offense performing at the level it was, it was enough to win the game. So I don't really have too much to complain about. You'd like to see better play.
MVS did kill us a little bit.
Yeah, but we got, so we got shredded at times. We let up some big plays, but at the end of the day, like, the offense carried the team. And, that's kind of the balance that good teams can have, is even if their defense has a bad day. And our defense has been very good for most of the year, right? I don't want to take that away from them. And it was not good today, but the offense was good enough to cover for it. And I think that is the sign of this team maybe turning into a better team than what we've had. Although, I don't know. It's kind of weird. All of our games have been so close and so tightly contested that, you feel up when you win and you're down when you lose, right? Just by the nature of like the win-loss record. But I'm not sure that this team is all that different from the team we saw. Like,
we have no blemishes. We're perfect. That game was perfect. Nobody dropped any Kirk Cousins picks. That didn't happen. None of it happened. Nobody got burned multiple times for multiple touchdowns. Aaron Rodgers did not throw 4 touchdowns. I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is I even if it boiled down to like 1 or 2 crucial moments, I feel like this year has been full of the word everybody uses to describe us this year is the chokers. Like we've been choking games away.
Yep.
And it felt like in this game, I don't know, I can't point to a specific play for me as watching, but I just felt like we've got this one. I just felt it, and I think that's more what I'm talking about. Just the sense of like we are not getting we're not backpedaling here.
There's something to that. We've been in this situation so many times that it's kind of crazy to think about, but I think the Vikings are above average in clutch situations. Like Cousins has how many like game tying or game winning or leading drives has Cousins? He's led 3 game winning drives plus a couple that didn't ultimately decide the game, but pushed the Bengals game to overtime, drove down the field in overtime. Drove down the field to win the Cardinals game and Greg Joseph missed. Like, Cousins has, how many times has the offense done this? And Thielen talked about this after the game. Like, they were like, oh man, was this an oh no, not again feeling? And he was like, no man, we've been in this so many times that now it's just like we're pure execution, pure focus. And like even Dalvin Cook, like Cook knew better not to score a touchdown. He asked about it in the end game interview. He's like, man, I really wanted to score, but at the same time, like, because he probably could have lowered his shoulder and made an attempt to get in the end zone on that final drive before Greg Joseph's game winner. But Cook knew to let up. This is just a team that, and you saw that on those last couple drives, they were just efficient. 2 minutes on the clock, boom, we're moving down the field. Effectively taking up time, we're not rushing, but we're also not giving Aaron Rodgers the ball back. And that was the difference in this game Aaron Rodgers threw 4 straight touchdown passes and they weren't going to give him the ball back after that. So I actually think this trial by fire is making this team very good in clutch situations.
No, I do agree with that point, specifically on the clutch situations, right? This is twice in the last 2 weeks now that we've seen the team put another team away, essentially, right? Mm-hmm. So the Chargers, we had the drive down the field to extend the lead to 2 scores, which I didn't know we were allowed to do before we did that because we haven't been able to do it all year. And then we had the 4-minute drive to put the game away and end it in kneel down. This week, we get it to, we were down by 1, I guess, because we'd missed the extra point, but it gets to that point. We drive down the field, score a touchdown right away, get a lead by 7 again. And then our next drive after the long bomb is to close out the game as well. So it's definitely been a different feeling from particularly the previous 2 weeks, but most of the season where we just kind of hung around and then had to put together a desperation drive. It feels a lot more controlled at this point in the season. So I would agree with that for sure.
It's Thanksgiving week, and I can tell you the one thing I'm definitely thankful for is this win over the Green Bay Packers. Happy Thanksgiving to all our listeners. I forgot to mention that at the top of the show. A special Thanksgiving episode here. It's our first Thanksgiving with you, and we're very happy to be in your ears. And,
if you're watching on YouTube, we might even have some Thanksgiving art edited in that we can't see right now. But
you can point to it. It's around here.
Just the screen, I guess. I don't know.
Great game, great result. Let's dig into it a little bit. Let's talk about the specifics you guys caught in your tape watching this week.
We're doing tape talk, Greg?
Let's do some tape talk, Nick. Let's do some. I swear to God, I need to get like some music or something in here so we can set it up properly each week. But let's talk about things you noticed right off the bat. Who wants to talk about Mason Cole at center over Garrett Bradbury? Possibly an illness decision, but do we feel like it was a good thing, a bad thing, who cares?
So for me, if it was an illness decision, that makes a lot more sense to me because I don't agree with the decision to put Mason Cole in at center. This game, I think you kind of saw it and this is kind of hard to qualify, right? Because I don't know if Garrett Bradbury would have performed any better against Kenny Clark in the situations where Mason Cole performed poorly, right? There were a number of times where Clark just dominated him, knocking him multiple yards back into the backfield, and he's blowing up plays. He's destroying plays in the run game. He's destroying plays in pass protection where Kirk needs to get rid of the ball and it's an errant throw. We've seen that a lot in the past from Garrett Bradbury blocking too. Like Kenny Clark, to get it out of the way, Kenny Clark's like a very good player. Yeah. But I don't know how much more Mason Cole adds than Bradbury in pass protection because he's getting beat in the same way that Bradbury does. I would say he's a bit more consistent, right? He is an upgrade there, but I think we have lost things in the run game in terms of his ability, particularly to get to linebackers at the second level. We've lost things with his ability to reach other players. And then the pass protection calls have been a mess for like the past 3 weeks. We've had multiple free runners. We've had free runners up the mid. We had like free runners up the middle on multiple plays this game. And a couple of those were like, there was like one step drop, quick throw where they can't change the protection on time or something like that. But that's unacceptable as an offense to have somebody coming through the A gap unblocked and hitting Kirk.
And to be clear for listeners who may not be aware, traditionally speaking, the center is responsible for those kind of calls. Traditionally.
And it's been confirmed, like, especially after the Ravens game, right, where it was a point of emphasis because the reporters were asking about it because, a couple of the major plays in the game were killed by free runners. That, Cole was the one calling pass protections and Kirk has the ability to veto that, but Cole's the one at the base level calling it. And I really think it's hurt us on a few plays. Now, again, we've won the past 2 games, so it hasn't really been, it hasn't killed us necessarily, but it is something that from what I've seen, and granted, I'm not in the building, right? So maybe there's something going on where he was making the correct protections and Kirk needs to do something different, or, maybe Cole is there mentally, but Bradbury is much better. We didn't have these busts with Bradbury in terms of those calls. Okay. So that's the biggest thing to me, because if we continue to let these free runners get at Kirk, it's gonna create problems.
Sure. Yeah. Anything to add there, Nick?
Yeah, I would say I think Cole is. I mean, they're very close in pass protection, but I would say once Cole actually gets set, he's I would say there's a gap there in pass protection. He's better than Bradbury once he gets set, but his issue is he has trouble getting into his stance out of the snap. So like he doesn't like sit down immediately. He kind of has this high stance when he's like holding onto the ball before he snaps it. And Clark, you saw it this game multiple times, was able to just immediately at the snap get his hands on him and basically bulldoze him over and backwards before Cole even got a chance to like get set and get his feet in the ground and have any anchor to withstand that bull rush. So Cole does a good job anchoring, re-anchoring, engaging. He's pretty decent with his hands, but I just think if you compound his issues with the snapping the ball and with getting into his stance, on top of also the screwed up protection calls, does he actually make this pass protection unit better? I'm not sure he does. And then I think it's Bradbury's pretty clearly the better run blocker, at least when we're doing wide zone, stretch zone concepts. We moved away from it a little bit in the past couple of weeks, but when we're doing that wide zone screen game that kind of is the Kubiak offense, Bradbury's a star at that stuff. So it will be interesting to see what they do going forward. I will say I'm glad they were able to make the switch, that they weren't like dead set in their ways, that they weren't sunk on like the sunk cost of Bradbury's the first round pick. Mason Cole is we traded a conditional 6th for him. So I was happy they're willing to give Cole some competition, take a closer look at it. But going forward, Cole did not do anything to like win the job this week at all. So
neither one of you are remotely impressed. Is what I'm basically taking
I mean,
away.
he like Nick said, he is better than Bradbury in pass protection. Like I don't want to get that mixed up, but I think the benefit you see there is outweighed by the losses that you have in the other scenarios, like with the protection calls and with run blocking.
If only we could combine them both into a one individual player, a center freak who could do it all.
While we're talking offensive line, can I just
wait? Are you telling me if you combined Mason Cole and Garrett Bradbury's skill sets together, they would only make an okay center?
I never said Mason Cole was good at pass protection. Like he's okay at pass protection. Bradbury is like bad.
So in this futuristic scenario where we have the possibility to create miraculous combined human beings, it still would not be impressive to Matt Priest.
Give me like Ryan Jensen and Garrett Bradbury.
Okay, I like it. All right, so Mason Cole, nah. Let's move on. Do we have anything else we want to talk about with Mason Cole? Let's talk about the passing game. I already went nuts about Justin Jefferson, but obviously, there's about a dozen individuals involved with the passing game, more than just him. So, what were you guys noticing this week that seemed to open things up? Because that's a pretty good passing defense we went up against. That's a team that's been surprising people. Kevin King is a guy who's sort of taken another step as a player this year. People are talking about him as an all-pro. Pretty good team against the pass. So what did you guys see this week that seemed to work?
Yeah, they held the Cardinals to 21 points. They held the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, to 13 points, and then they shut out Russell Wilson. I mean, he was injured, but they shut out is hard to come by in the NFL. So Vikings put up as many points as those last three playoff teams combined against this passing defense. It's a very good passing defense. We've talked a lot in recent weeks about the Vikings are kind of a short and shot team. And if the shots aren't falling, or if the flood action off the boot concepts are covered, they kind of don't have anything else. And so they just sort of turtle up and they run these little quick curls or whatever. And they end up punting the ball because they can't throw the ball past the sticks. Well, we saw something very different this game, and it was a very refreshing change, especially coming on the heels of what happened last week against the Chargers with a lot more aggression. I think the most important thing Kubiak did, like strategically, philosophically with the offense, is he's taking a lot of the concepts from the boot action game and just translating it to straight play action drop back. Very similar. We ran a lot of similar flood concepts, where there's a flat route, an out route, or a shorter corner route, and then like a deep corner route to stretch the defense, so that if there's a high-low coverage, it's cover 2 or cover 4 or something, so it'll stretch the cornerbacks there, and you can go to whoever's uncovered. But
can you describe that to listeners a little bit, what that means, the high-low concept? Because I think it's one of those things that when you figure out what that means as a fan, it really opens up the game a lot when you're watching it. It helps you understand what's happening. It basically, I'll leave it to you guys. You're the genius.
So yeah, what like Nick was just saying with sail there, right? Or with a smash is another common one. So smash against cover 2, you read the corner, right? And it's called a high-low because it creates a high-low stretch on the corner. So the corner has to either
too smart. Dumb it down for me. What does that mean?
The corner. So there's a route underneath him and there's a route on top of him, right? The corner has to choose which one he wants to cover. So the quarterback goes to the opposite one.
Absolutely. So, cool. So we were doing a lot of that is what you're saying.
That's like the bread and butter, like play action boot game in the Kubiak offense is this 3-level stretch where you have, whether it's the running back or a tight end running from split zone motion out to the flat. And you have another guy like the Y or another receiver running to like the intermediate. And then you have the corner out on top of it. That's like bread and butter flood concept for a lot of this boot game. And it hasn't been working. And I think a big reason why is because teams are just they see the boot. This is like the number one thing that Vikings do. So it's the number one thing. And it's not just what the Vikings are doing, but it's, the Rams, 49ers, Packers, Titans, and
a lot of teams.
Everybody, Seahawks, anybody else running this Shanahan Kubiak offense do. So the NFL kind of knows how to cover it now. They know how to like flood their own coverages. So it's no longer 3 routes versus 2 guys, but now it's 4 guys in coverage back there. So we took those same concepts, but now we're running them from a straight play action drop back. So when you do a boot, it's a half field read. You're cutting off half the field. When you do it from a straight play action drop back, now the defense still has to cover everything. I mean, there was an instance a couple of weeks ago where the cornerback doesn't even cover the backside of the route because he knows, it's a boot action. I'm just going to stand here. I don't have to do anything. So the Vikings now doing straight play action.
I believe I called that embarrassing at the time.
yeah. And so, but it's a good thing they see this, and now a lot of those same concepts are hitting because teams aren't realizing that it's a boot flood. They're not realizing they have to drop back and cover it the same way. So if that's that really deep shot to Justin Jefferson that was off a double corner, double sevens route. And they were able to just sort of hit that up. And it was sort of a similar thing to what you'd see in a boot, but instead it was off straight play action drop back. And both Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen underneath were wide open. They were able to hit that. The other thing that they're doing is they're building in a lot of those intermediate crossers. And it's doing huge things for the intermediate game. Like I said, we're either a feast or famine offense before, where either we would score a touchdown or go 3 and out. Building in like these straight drop back intermediate digs or the post routes over the middle, or whether it's a Y cross or something with Conklin or Justin Jefferson. These are setting up like 15, 19 yard gains or whatever. And they're opening up the intermediate aspect of the offense. And that's huge for this offense because it means it's no longer, we're not seeing the 3 and outs. Now we're getting chunk plays. We're not necessarily blowing the top off offenses with every time we hit an intermediate dig or whatever. But it's doing a lot of great things. And I think it's helpful that we faced 2 Brandon Staley or Vic Fangio defenses in the last 2 weeks. Kind of been in vogue about how many teams are running now, what the Packers and Chargers are doing. Joe Woods, the Packers defensive coordinator, being like a Fangio Staley disciple coming over, is a lot of these concepts, like the Mills concepts, where there's a dig route and a post route that both go over the middle. That stretches and punishes those cover 4 defenses that these defenses, that these past 2 teams and defenses like to run. So being able to hit those intermediate crossers, doing a lot of those things, does a lot of things for building a more efficient offense and getting it out of its rut of 3 and outs, or either we hit the shot plays, or then if the shot play is covered, then we have to punt. So really great strategic adjustment from Clint Kubiak.
It's remarkable that sometimes football is that simple. As complicated as it is, it's so simple too sometimes. Like, hey, let's just do something a little different. and defenses will...
It's one tweak. Football can be so complicated, but oftentimes like the silver bullet is just one little tweak. Like I'm going to do the same play, but now instead of a boot, it's going to be a straight play action drop back and boom, brand new offense. So funny how things work.
It seriously is all about tendencies, right? Because when what opponents are doing when they're watching the film is looking for tells to what's going to happen, especially on defense. You kind of need to have an idea of what's going to happen to be successful because you're reacting to things, right? So you kind of have to have a menu of things that you're thinking about and react to that accordingly. And the straight drop back play action, Nick, you hammered it really well. It was a great difference because rather than teams seeing the boot and being like, we need to run this direction, they don't think that automatically. That doesn't trigger in their brain. And The other thing I think that makes a difference is Kirk was getting hit by the edge rusher. They weren't respecting the run on those plays. Kirk was getting hit every single time, so he had to get rid of the ball immediately. Straight drop back allows the plays to develop more. Nick, you hit on a ton of the concepts. Y cross was great in this. We hit that 2 or 3 times. There was the double overs. I forget what that's called, but it's 2 6s. We hit Conklin on that one. That double 7s was I don't know. Like, so the Packers corners were terrible in this game. Like, they were awful. So that played into it a little bit because there were a lot of situations where guys were just wide open. But I mean, part of that is great wide receiver play. Part of that's great route running by both Jefferson and Thielen too. Other thing we've hit a lot recently, and we didn't really hit in this game, but we had it a couple times, were those dig routes, right? There were, like, the times we didn't hit it was mostly Kirk needed to get rid of the ball because there was pressure. It was open a few times. So no, really great job on the passing game. We've really revamped it. And I think the key, like Nick said, is just throw the boots into the trash because we can't, we just couldn't run them.
Right. Just kind of figure them out.
You just can't do it. So,
and another aspect of the modern boot game is having a quarterback who can throw to the other side of the field. So it's not just a half field read. And again, I'm not here to bag on Kirk, but that's not really something he does. He's not risky like that.
We were running some of those play action concepts like towards the middle of the season. Like, we were trying to build off and do that. And then the problem was just we couldn't get the boot going. Right. So when you can't get that going at all, you can't run those deeper concepts off of them, because if your quarterback can't stand there and wait for the routes to come open, like, it's not going to happen.
Right.
While we're talking about the passing game, we should also probably talk and give Clint Kubiak some kudos, and this will tie into the run game that I also want to talk about.
Why don't you lead right into the run game after too? Because we want to talk about that.
Yeah. The way we were using formations in this game to set up both efficient passing opportunities, but also efficient running opportunities was really interesting. They did a really great job using stack formations. I think the Packers were trying to double and bracket Jefferson in this game because they knew and they realized he was a threat. Probably says how good Jefferson is that he still put up 165 yards and should have been 3 touchdowns.
He's pretty good, guys. He's pretty good at football.
One play probably worth highlighting with Jefferson is that touchdown early in the middle of the game where Justin Jefferson initially lined up in the backfield. That's like the weak side option play that the Saints, Sean Payton and Drew Brees love so much, and it's so deadly because what it does is by putting Justin Jefferson in the backfield, you can't really double him. You give him a free release upfield, and then you basically have him set up with whoever that defender is in like that middle of the field on the close, to the boundary side. And this time it was a safety, and Justin Jefferson one-on-one versus a safety. You take that any day. Safety covers the outside, so Justin Jefferson has the options. Why it's called the option play to break it inside, and it's just easy money for the touchdown on 3rd down. But great play design, great way to set up Jefferson with the formation to get him a free release. They did it a couple other times. They had a similar option play.
The Thielen touchdown was 2. It was the same option play. It was just 2 Thielen. So they motioned to a stack formation. And again, like the previous one, it forced the corner to play 5 yards off, right? So it's just the same. It's literally the same option route. Thielen went out, Jefferson went in, but it's the same route, and it won both times for those touchdowns.
For listeners who may be wondering, stack formation means 2 receivers lined up on one side of the field, one directly in front of the other.
Or they're like offset.
They're offset,
but you can't press them is the key. Yeah.
Right.
And that leads into, they did the same thing there to set up, efficient receiving opportunities for their receivers with the run game as well. There were some really, I wouldn't say necessarily unique because it's not like they've never been done before, but unique for the Vikings looks in the run game this game. I think coming out in the second half, they had a really great drive.
Nick, I'm Joe fan. All right. And I don't follow the Minnesota Vikings. Okay. I'm just looking at this stat line and I'm going, they bottled Dalvin. Dalvin sucks. He only had 86 yards this game. What are you talking about? The running game was good. We put some extra wrinkles in. What do you mean by that, Nick?
Dalvin didn't necessarily have any explosives where he was going 50 yards downfield, but I think he was pretty consistent.
He didn't score enough fantasy points.
Well, there you go.
Sucks.
Dalvin was
PFF
efficient.
says he was a 30.
the run block. I mean, there were a lot of like small gainers, but they were small, efficient gainers, like staying on the schedule. So I think particularly I look at the play design on that first drive when they came out with the second half with the ball. And that was, you could tell they scripted it because that was Dennison and Rauscher and Kubiak were deep in their bag with that one. I counted, they had an inside zone to start out from I formation. Then they ran duo with jet motion. They ran a jet reverse where they run it one way and Justin Jefferson picks up the ball the other way. Then they do a power run, but from the shotgun, split back. We've never seen that from the Vikings all year. They don't run a lot of power. They've been doing more of it. They hardly ever run from shotgun. I mean, this is an under center team. You don't usually see Dalvin Cook taking the ball off from shotgun. I think that's usually a good thing. It's a little harder just from the angle that the running back has to take. Yeah. With the footwork, it's a little trickier. But I think it's a nice mix up here. And the Packers that's one of the things I think the Packers run defense keys in on is, they're in shotgun, so they're not going to run the ball here. They later in that same drive.
Tendencies.
They ran inside zone from shotgun, but Jefferson was again initially lined up in the backfield, and then they motion him out. And then now it's inside zone from the shotgun. Packers were totally not expecting it. It was a 5-man box with the Packers. There was like one linebacker back there. It was a big gain because, Christian Darrisaw just bulldozed a dude and Dalvin just like ran up behind him. It was like easy money. So, and then, probably the fans, the most interesting wrinkle is on the 2-point conversion after they scored their final touchdown. That was GY counter with like a shovel pass option. It was a lot of bells and whistles on that one. So GY counter, I'm not sure they probably run counter. I can probably count on one hand how many times they've run counter this year. It's more of a Ravens, power running game and the reason it's called counter is because the running back takes off one way and goes back the other way. And you have guys from the back side of the play pulling and coming around to the front side of the play. And so the
hope being that the defense goes one way and then when
they
start to come back the other way.
And then you outrun them going after you change directions. And that play had a built-in ability because it's called GY counter, G meaning the guard is pulling and Y meaning the Y tight end is pulling, in this case, Tyler Conklin. And Cousins had the ability to sort of shovel pass like a Chiefs play to Travis Kelce, shovel pass it to Conklin coming up the middle. So like a lot of things going on that 2-point conversion play. It ended up being very simple because of the option. I think it held the Packers defenders just a hair of a second, and that allowed Cook to just sort of like run in and get the edge and have the speed to just outrun everybody. But man, there was a lot of really interesting run design that went into this game, and it's cool to see the Vikings get into their bag and come out with some interesting stuff and not just don't get me wrong, I love the wide zone stuff, but like compared to vanilla stretch zone, this was a pretty unique and cool and effective, I think, game plan to take advantage of what the Packers key in on and what they do well against.
Yeah, way to go, Coobs. Where are you hiding?
You don't need 100 yards rushing or 150 yards rushing from Dalvin when your passing game's playing this well. Joe fan over there. So
yeah, Joe fan. Great stuff. And totally felt that way watching the game. So, even though we didn't have the big gainer, I did feel like we were in control on the ground. The numbers kind of surprised me after when I looked at it. I was like, wow, it seemed like Dalvin had way more of an impact than that. But to your point, great. Okay, so let's flip to the other side of the ball. We've focused on offense a lot in this episode for a good reason. I mean, this was an offensive showdown, one of the best games of the year, certainly for the Vikings, probably a top 5 game for the league this year. Real shootout. It was really fun to watch.
Fun for everybody other than Vikings and Packers fans to watch.
Yeah. But we did do some stuff defensively. And one of the things that I think you both were really excited about was the way we went about pressuring Aaron Rodgers this week. And Matt, I think you wanted to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we got burned a couple times with it, obviously, and it wasn't, I guess, the most effective situation, but Zimmer was really
before you dig in too much, I think we should have a little bit of perspective on getting burned by Aaron Rodgers and this team the way they are this year. It's not really that huge a mark against you. I mean, these guys have been burning a lot of people. They've been cooking a lot of people out.
There were a lot of signature Aaron Rodgers throws that are just like,
yeah,
what do you
do?
do? Like when he rolled out and hit like the tight end for that touchdown, it's like, what do you do? I don't know.
Yeah, and
sorry to interrupt you.
No. I think it's good to bring up, like, Xavier Woods had a bad game this game. But the problem was he was matched up 1-on-1 against Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who runs a 4.3,
way faster than him,
and he's way faster. He's way faster than Woods. But those are the difficulties that the Packers offense creates for you, because Devontae Adams is so good. You have to pay a lot of attention to him when you have the 4.3 guy as the number 3 on the opposite side of Devontae Adams, and you're trying to double Devontae Adams. You're asking your safety to take him vertical, and that's a very difficult ask for Woods. And I'm not saying it's not his fault that it didn't happen, but it's just a hard situation to be in.
But also, look, I you guys know, and we're not going to talk about it, but I'm familiar with MVS because I've had him on my fantasy team. The Packers have been waiting for him to have a game like this. This is probably the first game that they can really point
this
to.
Was his
MVS,
first game back, right? He was hurt for a while.
Well, he was hurt a little bit, but he has never had a game where he was this open, this often, and delivered when the ball was given to him. And I can tell you that, and I'm sure Packer fans, if they ever heard this, would agree 100%. Like, that guy has never showed that kind of dominance. So I think that we were
last year, because he burned us then pretty bad too. Sorry,
okay, but that's like one of like 16 damn games. Like I'm telling you, this guy has been a huge disappointment in Green Bay, and so I think I understand why they felt like we think we can cover him. We think Woods can cover him or whatever. Was a mistake.
so sorry, I sidetracked us a little bit there, but I did too. I want to get into the chess match between Zimmer and the Packers a little bit. So. First of all, Aaron Rodgers talked about this a little bit today on the Pat McAfee show. Actually, I would encourage you guys to check that interview out, because there was a ton of great information on that interview, like just him talking about the game and how the Vikings were defending things. It was really just cool to listen to from his perspective. And, he talks a lot about Zimmer's blitzes and how he makes it really difficult on the offense, and threw in a few new wrinkles this game that really they needed to adjust to, right? And the big one was a variation on our double A gap blitz, right? So that's our typical mugged up everybody on the line of scrimmage, Barr and Kendricks in the A gap. They actually sent everybody. They sent Kendricks up the middle. Oh, I'm sorry. It was Barr and Kendricks in the A gap. So they send Kendricks up the middle. And the 3 technique to the one side, DJ Wanham, they actually wrapped around and went into the other A gap, and they wrapped Barr back the other direction. The first time I've got the 2 plays, I don't think I've tweeted it yet because I didn't get to the MVS touchdown. But the first time the Packers didn't pick it up and Wanham was a free runner. I think there was a coverage bust and they still completed the pass, but it was a really nice blitz. Later on that long Valdez-Scantling touchdown, they ran the same blitz and the Packers did a good job of picking it up. But it's really nasty in terms of like what Zimmer's doing, because he already does all these things and standard ways to protect him, but it's really a coin flip and you're guessing what's going to happen after the snap. There was another where Barr, so the way the Vikings do this is they got the 2 guys in the A gap, right? And the direction the center turns is typically the guy who drops out, right? So the pass protection in the offense, the center chooses to go to a side, right? He has to choose one of the 2 guys to go to, and he'll call that out. And usually the Vikings are good at figuring out who he's going to go to. And when he turns to that direction, he can't turn in that direction and go back to the other one. He just doesn't have the time to do that. You got to ask a back or somebody to pick up the other one. So he turns to that direction, and the guy will drop out and just be an extra player in coverage because you're taking up the center and nobody can block him. In this game, I saw Barr drop back in that situation and then loop back around the guard. Like half a second later, again, the ball was out before Barr was able to get there, but he was a free runner again, right? So there was a lot of neat little wrinkles that Zimmer brought to the game on defense in terms of blitzing, just that's really hard to deal with as an offensive line. And we did get a little unlucky, on the back end there in the game, but I really thought he called it good. Also, unfortunately, outside of Sheldon Richardson, who played great and played a lot of edge rusher, like our guys weren't really winning their one-on-one reps. So that kind of hurt us a lot too.
Do you feel like, go ahead.
That was the tough nut to crack, I think, for Zimmer in this game, because with the speed the Packers have on top of Devontae Adams being uncoverable in single coverage for the most part, you just can't give Rodgers all day to throw. As well as the coverage played, and the coverage did play well this game, they needed to scheme up ways to get to Rodgers because Rodgers is so good buying time in the pocket and finding a way to get guys downfield. I mean, that's what happened on that Devontae Adams touchdown where there just wasn't any pass rush, and Rodgers was like, fine, I'm just going to wait 6 seconds here in the pocket, yada, yada, yada.
The DeGuara touchdown, too, was the same.
Yeah, so Zimmer needed to scheme up ways to make sure Rodgers felt like he had to get rid of the ball. And so he saw actually a very blitz-heavy game plan from Zimmer. I think he blitzed on over a third of his snaps. Zimmer's usually a little under a quarter of his snaps on defense. So a very blitz-heavy game. Griffin had some great wins. Griffin had some great wins early on, but other than him and Sheldon Richardson to an extent, nobody was really getting home.
How badly is this team missing Danielle Hunter?
Oh man, it's huge. I mean,
that would have been a massive difference in this game.
They wouldn't have had to blitz very much if Hunter were in the game because Hunter's a wrecking ball. So they needed to blitz to make up for the fact that their pass rush has not played as well, and particularly I think,
and he's not coming back. So
so that's the problem. I mean, it does help. Not every quarterback is Aaron Rodgers, and it helps a lot that Peterson played really well in this game. He only gave up 23 yards, and he was largely shadowing. It's probably worth flagging that. Like, Zimmer asking you to shadow a team's number one wide receiver is like promotion to the big leagues. Like, that's it. I don't think Zimmer's done that since like peak Xavier Rhodes. So I think it says a lot about how much Mike Zimmer thinks of Patrick Peterson that he was asking him to shadow Devontae Adams for a lot of the game. But also, like, Bashaud Breeland had a bounce back game. Like, he played really well. They went after him. I think we flagged this last week is the Packers have so much speed. The Vikings cornerbacks do not have that much speed. And Bashaud Breeland in particular struggles. You can beat him downfield. We saw with Jamar Chase week 1. You can beat him downfield on those vertical routes. So they went to Bashaud Breeland. They picked on him twice in the first 10 plays of the game on fade routes, and Breeland just snuffed them out. Like, got a good arm bar in there, forced it to the sideline, and forced it so that he was in a position to slow the receiver down so that the ball went incomplete over the receiver's head. Wasn't that Rodgers threw a bad ball? It was that Breeland made the ball bad by slowing the receiver down and catching up to him. So really good coverage. And then Breeland almost had a pick, peeling off coverage and coming back to Devontae Adams. So after that, they didn't really pick on Breeland very much. He had, I think, probably his best game in coverage as a Viking. So if he can keep that up going forward, I think having good coverage on the back end will do a lot in terms of not having to scheme up as much pressure on the defensive line. So that will help a lot.
So in summary, all in all, it was a good game, a great game to watch, very entertaining. Lots of little cracks and crevices, still with this team. But the reality is, like you said, Nick, we talked about this stretch of games as easily the hardest stretch we were going to have this year. And it absolutely played out that way. But we went 2-2. We went 2-2. And now we have the back half of this season here. It's a little longer this year, but that might play into our hands. We have 6 weeks, 7 weeks here to punch our ticket. And we're up against it right now in the wild card race. Personally, I don't believe in any of the teams we're up against. And I'm making the call right now before we even talk about the Niners, right here on this show. The Minnesota Vikings are going to make the 2021 playoffs. I don't know what we're going to do there, but I am convinced solely because of this win that this team deserves to make the playoffs and will make the playoffs. And like I said before, it doesn't change how I feel. I still wouldn't describe this as a team I'm enjoying, but I think we are talented, and I think we are going to make the playoffs. And I think that push starts this week against a team that we've had a lot of really good games against over the years. Coming in on theme for the season, we're facing yet another top 5 defense in one of the categories. In this week, it's the passing defense. The passing defense is top 5 currently. We just found out today, the day of this recording, that Dalvin Tomlinson will be out for the game, which is extremely.
Do we know he's out?
So to clarify, I don't think we know he is out, but
he's on the COVID list.
If he's tested positive, he is out because he's unvaccinated, so he would have to have the 10-day wait period. It could theoretically be a close contact where he only has to wait 5 days and he would be good to go.
Right.
But my assumption at this point is that it's a positive test. I think that's what we've primarily seen people go on the list for.
And the reason this matters, other than the fact that he's been one of our best players on defense, is that the Niners finally fully, about 2 weeks ago, fully committed to the run, like in a major way. Like, I don't know if you guys watched that game on Monday night where they just ran the ball. It got me hard. I loved it.
Gregg, our PG rating, please.
I love that.
I guess we're already off the deep end. So anyway,
they run the ball. The ball, and I think at this point they're really committed to it because it's working for them. They're basically saying if you can't stop the run, you're not going to be able to stop us. And if you leave Deebo Samuel alone, we're bombing it to Deebo, and he's going to run it right to the touchdown every time. So they have a really interesting formula. I would say we match up pretty well if Dalvin's in there. But how do you guys feel about this game? So I've teased it a little bit, but in general, how do you guys feel about this game?
So for a long time, I didn't think the 49ers were like any good at all. Like, I thought they were bad for quite a while, and they had a stretch where they were not playing well. I'm concerned, honestly, about this game against them. Basically, they played really well the last few weeks, like 3 weeks in a row now. They've really played well. And as part of that, they're actually 7th in DVOA overall right now. The Vikings were a team that we talked about was probably better than their record a couple of weeks ago, where we were fringe top 10 in DVOA. And the 49ers, I think, are in a similar space to that.
Have you guys caught much of Fred Warner this year?
He hasn't played as well as he has in years past, but he's still good. Like,
he's still really good, man.
Yeah.
He makes plays.
The thing is, like, their offense is always going to be good with Kyle Shanahan, and their run game is a huge concern to me with Dalvin Tomlinson probably out, right? I guess we can't officially say that he's out, but that's a huge concern to me because now, even though we're down Michael Pierce, we still have Tomlinson in there. Now we're down both of them. Right. So we're going to struggle.
Which is what we had last year.
Holding the line of scrimmage. And I think Armon Watts is a better player than he was last year. And I think he's better than the guys we had in there last year. And James Lynch has been playing the same. But a lot of times, we're playing those guys in nose while Dalvin's at 3 techniques. So Dalvin's still able to eat double teams and that sort of stuff. It's a little bit different than, Michael Pierce being at nose, obviously. But we've had some success there. I'm concerned with having both of them on the field at the same time.
I don't know if you guys have caught Trent Williams this year, but he is an absolute destroyer of souls. Oh my goodness. Like, watch his run blocking highlights and you'll want to run through a wall. The man is
wide bodies. Nick loves a wide body.
Whether it's Everson Griffin or DJ Wanham matched up against him in the run game, it's going to be pretty ugly, I think.
And then the other thing that concerns me about them is they make you tackle. Like, obviously, particularly Deebo Samuel, right? Who,
oh my God,
does everything yak.
He's unbelievable.
But they really make you tackle. And there have been games this year where the Vikings have really struggled with that. It was more early on in the season, but the Ravens are another team that makes you tackle a lot, and I think we struggled with that a little bit too.
I mean, imagine what that must be like for opposing defenses, and we're about to watch it. Like, your top receiver plays like a badass, hard as nails running back.
Well, he actually plays.
He is. I mean, that's what he is. Like,
now, I guess.
But then he's got that extra gear too. Like, so he's not just gonna make you work for every yard to try and bring him down. If you let up for a second, he's gone, man. He's gone. And they have a lot of talent. I do think this is gonna be a tough game. It's gonna be a tough game.
Offensively, Jimmy Garoppolo, it's kind of like Kirk Cousins. Just despite all the heat he gets, he's the number 1 most efficient passer in the NFL this year by EPA per play, which is the best measure of efficiency by a quarterback. It's not defense adjusted, but in terms of just pure EPA per play, Shanahan's passing offense is the most dangerous in the NFL. And then you add on top of that, Shanahan being like the mad scientist he is with the run game, with that offensive line run blocking and the way they block it up, and George Kittle and Kyle Juszczyk in there. It's pretty brutal, especially if it's going to be like DJ Wanham, Everson Griffin, and like Armon Watts in run defense. It's not going to be pretty. And I think we saw this in the 2019 playoff matchup when we last saw the 49ers in a big game like this. Like, when you get, like, yes, passing is more efficient than running, but when you get to like a critical mass of rushing efficiency, a team can just rush it down your throats. And if they can pick up 5 yards every play, they're just going to keep doing it to you all game. And at that point, you're toast. Like, sure, like passing, you could get like 8 yards per play, but like if you can get a consistent 5 yards or whatever, it'll be like the Saints game last year. They'll just run all over you and they won't even need to do anything else. And it'll just destroy your soul. So
it's a forgotten reality in football that if you know what I'm going to do, but I can still do it to you. Oh boy.
So that's
that's tough.
And then defensively, they've also got Eric Armstead and Nick Bosa. So Armstead, destroyer of Vikings interior guards for a while. So,
and Kittle is still kind of warming up from that injury. I don't think he's really had his big game back yet. And that's
I think
we still have not given up a touchdown to a tight end, boys.
Oh so, boy, I have not tracked that at all. But that's it.
We have not.
Well,
we have not done it.
Is Deguara a fullback or is he?
Oh, that's right. Deguara caught one. No, never mind. That's out. That's out the window. That's over.
So anyway,
now we don't have to jinx it. So now we're
exactly. We got it out of the way. It can't be Kittle because it's Deguara caught it.
So So anyway, like Nick was saying, I think it's a really good point. When a team can run the ball like the 49ers and are willing to run the ball like the 49ers are, right? They will just every play, like Navy or somebody, we're going to run the ball and we're going to get 5 yards if they're able to do that in the game, right? That forces you to commit to stop the run, because if you allow, like Nick said, theoretically, you should probably focus on the pass over the run on defense, right? But if the team is going to run the ball every single play, you have to commit to stop it, because if they just keep doing that for 5 yards at a time, you're going to lose the football game.
Yep.
Right. So
death by 1,000 cuts. Right?
When you're forced to, come up against the run, that's where Kyle Shanahan's play action game and his passing game gets you. And that's why Jimmy Garoppolo has been the most efficient player, right? Mm-hmm. Is being able to play passer, I guess, is being able to play off of that. Like Nick said, on the defensive side of the ball, I do think their corners are a vulnerability. Like Emmanuel Mosley, I think Josh Norman is starting for them, and he is washed.
Yeah.
Like washed. But if we don't give Kirk enough time, it might not matter. Now, I think with what we've seen the past couple of weeks, Kirk's still, in bombs away mode. So hopefully we see that. And, Kirk didn't have a lot of time against the Packers in some instances, and we still were able to bomb it and make some things happen deep down the field. So I'm hoping we continue to see that from the offense in this game. And I think that is really the key to us winning this game, is get enough stops on defense, maybe force a turnover or two. I mean, Jimmy is a little bit susceptible. He can be turnover prone at times, get lucky with a fumble on their end of the ball. And then, the deep passing game, once again, I think needs to show up for us on offense.
Should be a good one, guys. Should be a good game. I really think it will be. Any final thoughts on the Niners? Okay. I think it's time. It's time. And I've been waiting for this. 15 seconds of fantasy, boys. I hope you're ready. No, Matt's not ready. Okay, so the rule is each of us get 5 seconds to talk about our fantasy teams. We're all in a fantasy league together, and we know our listeners don't want to hear us talk about fantasy football, but we desperately want to talk about it. So every week,
5 seconds this week, he needs 2.
Every week we give 15 seconds of our show to fantasy. Each one of us gets 5. Nick, begin your time now.
Watch out, 72 Dolphins. I'm 11-0. I'm coming for that perfect season.
Matt.
Everybody was trading at our trade deadline today, and I just wish I had any future picks to add more assets.
I told you I was rising, and then I rose, and now I'm going to push for a title, Nicky boy. All right.
Good luck with that.
All right, guys, this was super fun this week. Matt, where can people find you on Twitter.
Fries Football on
At Fries
Twitter.
Football. And you can point down below you. There should be a little
there'll be
there.
a name below me now. We're adding to the graphics on YouTube.
We're every week we build. We
Check
get
us
better
out.
and better, just like the Vikos. Nick, where can people find you on Twitter?
At Nick Olson NFL. This Thanksgiving, I'm thankful for all our wonderful listeners. Got some great iTunes reviews on the podcast. That was cool to see.
Awesome.
Got some great feedback on people listening to the show. So in our first season, it's awesome to see it get listeners take off a little bit. So it's been really cool to see.
Very cool.
Nick,
We're very
you're
happy
way
to
more
hear.
prepared than I am, but I just want to echo that sentiment right there.
We're very happy that anybody wants to listen to us. It's really cool.
Yeah, exactly.
My name is Gregg Blake. You can find me on Twitter or Instagram at You've Been Gregg. It's right there. You can find us as a collective at Kindred Skulls on Twitter. You can also find us on YouTube by searching for Kindred Skulls, 2 words. We're available on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. This has been lovely. Digital hugs.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving,
happy
everybody.
Thanksgiving.
I love
Enjoy
you.
the games.
We've
Bye,
come
bye.
to the time in the season when family and friends gather near to offer a prayer of thanksgiving for blessings we've known through the years, to join hands